Welcome to Movie Rehash. Today, I'm going to explain a mystery movie released in 2022, titled, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie begins in May 2020. Claire DeBella, who is the governor of Connecticut, is having a video interview at her home when she gets a strange package from Miles. Meanwhile, at Alpha Industries, a scientist named Lionel Toussaint is on a video call with his bosses. They are desperately asking him not to approve his boss Miles Braun's risky ideas for a new invention that could harm people. Then, Lionel receives the same mysterious package from Miles. During a party, famous supermodel, Birdie J is being looked after by her overwhelmed assistant, Peg. They also receive the package from Miles. Peg is trying hard to prevent a tipsy Birdie from reaching her phone. Meanwhile, a popular Twitch personality who talks about men's issues, Duke Cody, is creating a video with his girlfriend, Whiskey. Duke's mother informs him that he has received the same package. Claire, Lionel, Birdie, and Duke then have a phone call to figure out how to open the box. Lionel eventually solves the puzzle, leading them to find a miniature model of a building and an invitation from Miles to visit his private island for the weekend. The last person to get the package is Cassandra Andy Brand. She simply smashes the box before finding the invitation. Detective Benoit Blanc is in a bathtub, talking via video chat with Natasha Lyonne, Stephen Sondheim, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They're all worried because Blanc hasn't been leaving his apartment much between cases. While they're chatting, Blanc's partner, Philip, calls him to let him know that he's received a box. Blanc later joins the guests as they gather at a dock to board a ship headed for Miles's island. Claire, Birdie, Lionel, and Duke are excited to meet Blanc because of his famous cases. Just before they set off, Miles's assistant instructs them to take a disinfectant that will allow them to interact without wearing masks. As they board the boat, everyone is shocked to see Andy also arriving. On the ship, Lionel tells Blanc that everyone is surprised to see Andy there because she had a well-known disagreement with Miles when he excluded her from a major business deal. The guests reach Miles's island, and he comes out to welcome them, introducing a random guest named Dirol. Miles then gives them a tour of his home, called the Glass Onion, which is named after a bar they used to visit. He reveals that they'll be participating in a murder mystery game, with him as the victim. Miles provides special bracelets that lead to their rooms, and Blanc meets Andy for the first time. Blanc heads to Miles's office and discovers that Miles didn't actually invite him to the gathering, even though he received an invitation. The guests settle in and head to the pool, enjoying spiked kombuchas. While this is happening, it seems that Whiskey is getting quite cozy with Miles, and Duke notices. Peg approaches Birdie and urges her to discuss a personal matter with Miles. Birdie remarks on how Miles was an unknown person when she first met him. Miles takes a moment to address the group with a brief speech. However, Andy joins the conversation and expresses her frustration with him and the others. She believes that they are attaching themselves to Miles because he supports their endeavors, such as Claire's political career and Duke's Twitch streaming, and she's not happy about it. Peg takes matters into her own hands and approaches Miles directly. She asks him to back off from Birdie, explaining that it's related to a sweatshop in Bangladesh that produces the clothes she manufactures. However, Miles remains firm in his stance. Blanc tries to enjoy a cigar but is startled by an alarm. Later, he catches Duke discovering Miles and Whiskey hooking up in his bedroom. At night, Miles gathers everyone for drinks before they settle down to start the mystery game. Almost immediately, Blanc deduces that Birdie is the would-be murderer, because she's seated directly across from a statue with a time-released crossbow aimed at Miles. As expected, the arrow kills Miles, annoying him, but impressing everyone else. Miles goes to clean up, and Blanc follows him, apologizing for solving the mystery so quickly. However, he reminds Miles that he's brought together people who all have real motives to want him dead. Blanc then notices an artifact framed by Miles, which is a cocktail napkin supposedly containing the details that led to the development of Alpha. As the guests continue to enjoy their drinks, Miles mentions that he has the real Mona Lisa on loan from the Louvre, as they needed money due to the pandemic. The painting is protected by a sensitive alarm system with a visible failsafe. Miles then gathers everyone for another presentation, revealing that he has developed a new and untested fuel source called Clear, which powers the entire Glass Onion. Lionel expresses concern, stating that it's crazy to unveil Clear to the public without at least 2 years of testing. Andy confronts Miles again, but Duke steps in and suggests that she's already lost in the grand scheme of things. In response, Andy decides to leave the party. The party continues, and Duke shows something on his phone to Miles, claiming it could be a game-changing opportunity that would land Duke a highly sought-after spot in Alpha News. Miles makes a drink for Duke, who starts choking shortly after. The others rush to help, but tragically, Duke passes away. The group begins searching for his phone, but it has stopped receiving notifications, and no one can locate it. Suspicion grows that Miles might have been the intended target, and they also realize that Duke's usual gun is missing. As the clock strikes 10, the lights throughout the place start to go out. Whiskey rushes in, shouting that Andy has ransacked their room. Blanc goes after Andy in the darkness, but as they start talking, an unknown attacker fires a gun, injuring Andy. The rest of the group rushes out and finds Blanc standing near her. He then gathers everyone in another room. The movie then goes back to when Blanc got the invitation. Helen, who is Andy's twin sister, visited him and gave him a broken puzzle box. Helen told Blanc that Andy was believed to have taken her own life a few days ago, but she thinks Andy was actually murdered. Miles had excluded Andy from the Clear deal because she thought it was risky, but he secretly gathered Claire, Lionel, Duke, and Bertie to testify against Andy and completely remove her from Alpha. Helen points out that these four were initially good friends with Andy, and it was Andy who introduced them to Miles. Back then, they thought Miles was not successful, but they only started caring about him when he became successful and helped them. When Andy was angry, she found the real cocktail napkin where she had written all the Alpha ideas that Miles had stolen and claimed as his own. Helen believes that someone from this group poisoned Andy and left her body in her car to make it look like a suicide, especially since there was no envelope at her home and no suicide note. Blanc suggests a plan: he and Helen should go to the island, with Helen pretending to be Andy. At first, Helen is unsure, but she agrees because she can change her appearance and way of speaking to look like Andy. On the boat, Duke and Bertie are surprised by Andy's appearance, so Blanc gives Helen some tips on how to avoid raising suspicion. Once they arrive on the island, Helen has a few drinks and discreetly listens in on the guests' conversations to find out their motives and opportunities. She overhears Lionel and Claire discussing how their careers are at risk because of Clear. Claire worries about losing potential voters for supporting Clear, and Lionel hasn't revealed that Clear could be prone to leaks, which might lead to massive explosions. Helen also places a recorder in Bertie's bag, which captures a conversation between Bertie and Peg. In this conversation, Bertie admits to taking full responsibility for the Bangladesh sweatshops, allowing Miles to compensate her. Finally, Helen talks to Whiskey and discovers that Whiskey is unhappy in her relationship with Duke, who only sees her as a trophy girlfriend. It turns out that Duke had asked Whiskey to seduce Miles to convince him to let Duke join Alpha News. However, Miles refused because Duke had tried to promote erection pills to teenage boys, which would bring bad publicity. During the evening party, Blanc advises Helen to start an argument that she's certain to lose, providing her with an excuse to leave the party and search through people's rooms for the missing envelope. After Duke is killed, Whiskey finds Helen in her room and aims a trident gun at her. However, when the lights suddenly go out, Helen seizes the chance to escape. She and Blanc manage to reunite just before the assailant can shoot her. Helen survives because she had one of Andy's handbooks with her, which protected her from harm. Blanc then uses Jeremy Renner brand hot sauce to create the illusion that Helen is dead to the rest of the group. This ruse allows her to continue her search for the missing envelope without arousing suspicion. Helen successfully locates the missing envelope in Miles's office. In a crucial moment, Blanc informs the group that Miles is not the tech genius he portrays himself to be. Blanc points out that Miles often uses malapropisms and has a track record of making foolish decisions. He boldly states that Miles is the real killer. Despite telling others that Duke accidentally took the glass meant for Miles, Blanc reveals the truth. Miles directly handed the glass to Duke and even took his gun, waiting for the right moment to plant the weapon and create chaos when the lights went out. This idea was indirectly suggested by Blanc himself. The reason for Duke's death was his decision to show Miles an article about Andy's demise, which he intended to use as leverage to secure a position in Alpha News. Miles, aware of Duke's severe pineapple allergy, spiked Duke's drink with pineapple juice. Days earlier, Duke had a near miss with Miles's car as he left Andy's place. Duke, along with Claire, Lionel, and Bertie, had gone to check on Andy but found no response. Miles had killed Andy after learning about an email from Lionel indicating that Andy had possession of the envelope. Helen suddenly appears, shocking everyone as they realize she's Andy's twin sister. She shows them the napkin as proof that Andy was the true mastermind, but Miles burns it, leaving them with no evidence. The rest of the group remains silent, failing to speak up for Andy, so Helen bluntly calls them out as shitheads. Blanc, feeling defeated, hands Helen a drink. Remembering Blanc's earlier advice that she's more quick-thinking when drunk, Helen quickly downs her drink and begins to destroy Miles's valuable possessions. Surprisingly, the rest of the group joins Helen in support, smashing things, until Helen accidentally starts a fire. In a daring move, Helen reveals the other item Blanc had given her, a sample of Clear. She tosses it into the fire, and the substance spreads through the vents, leading to a massive explosion that obliterates the glass onion. Blanc and Dirol watch the chaos from a distance while sharing cigars. As Miles's residence turns into a raging inferno, Helen decides to deliver one final blow by opening the case containing the Mona Lisa, letting the priceless artwork catch fire. The guests rush out of the burning building, with Miles chastising and taunting Helen, claiming she still has no concrete proof of Andy's involvement in anything. However, Helen finds solace in the knowledge that she has completely shattered Miles's reputation and brought down his entire business empire. In a surprising turn of events, the other guests agree to testify against Miles, just as the police begin to arrive on the island. Miles's reign of deception and wrongdoing is coming to an end, and justice is finally catching up with him. Helen joins Blanc by the water, her face adorned with a contented smirk as she gazes out at the ocean. In this way, movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.